Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Safe Space, where we are your safe space to ask questions regarding Christian faith. And I'm Reggie, your host. And in this podcast, we are going to talk about the topic called "What if I have nothing to thank God for 2022?" Specifically about the sovereignty of God. And today we have invited Isaac of Hong to share with us his journey, his experience, and stories on this particular topic. Okay, so maybe Isaac, you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, thanks Reggie. Hi everyone. My name is Isaac. I am 26 this year, and I'm currently about to start my full-time job, which is to be a teacher at one of the schools in the north. Yes, so I'm actually about to start like in about 2 weeks' time. Yes.
Nice. What's the topic? What's the subject you're going to teach?
Oh, I'm going to teach history and social studies, so humanities, at the school.
Nice. Okay, for you all out there who are struggling with humanity and history, you can approach Isaac. Okay, but anyway, so usually Isaac, before I start, right, because this is a safe space, usually I'll ask my guests, what could I do or look out for you in order to provide this safe space for you to share what you want to share?
I guess that's a good question. I think in order to provide a safe space, I guess what would be good would be to not have any preconceived notions of the answers, and also just to I guess provide that good environment for our conversation to take place, and I guess also to allow me to share as comfortably as I can, without being too pressurized. I'm sure it won't be because I watched your previous videos and I think okay.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Isaac. Yeah. So in order to help me too is if any time I kind of didn't take care of that, you feel free to just voice out, pause the conversation now.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Thanks. Great. Okay. So since today we are talking about the topic about what if I have nothing to thank God for 2022, maybe let's first start off with how would you describe your 2022 in 3 words?
Okay. I think I will describe my 2022 with these particular words. The first one will probably be learning, because it was a year of learning in while I was doing my teacher training. For those of you out there who might want to be a teacher, you need to do that before you actually start full-time teaching. So it was a whole year of that. So that's a year of learning. I think it was also a year of stretching. Because I think this year I had a little bit more time on my hands, so I was able to be more involved in various things, especially in church. So it was a year of just serving in more ways. So, but I think through that process, it was definitely very stretching experience. There's learning, there's stretching, and I think also the year was also a year of waiting, because I think there are some things that I have been, praying about. Which I have, has been a bit of a struggle for myself to have the answers from God. I've been praying about them, but so I just felt that it was really a year of waiting and trusting God for answers to some of these questions that I have.
Wow. I think if I were to imagine your 3 words in like directions, like arrow direction, you seems to be like stretched in every way. So learning has this idea of going up. Then stretching has this idea of left and right. And then waiting has this idea of pulling down. Like you have to waiting has this you don't move anywhere in the space. So it's like you're quite stretched in everywhere. Right.
Cool. I never looked at it that way.
I know that's even.
Thanks for visualizing for me. It's like different directions.
So okay. So thanks for sharing that. Now maybe let's dive into your 2022, or maybe it can be beyond that lah, right? What were some of the instances, right, where you actually questioned about God's sovereignty?
I think there were definitely times where I struggled to accept God's sovereignty in my life, but I think also to start off, I must also share that sovereignty is also not something that is a very easy concept to understand. It's quite a challenging thing because I think it's more than just simply trusting God. It's also understanding God's authority in our life, and how He is above all else above all the things that even us as humans can comprehend. Yeah, so I think one of the things that was in my life that happened that I struggled to accept God's sovereignty was not really this. In fact, it was a few years back. It was when I was serving my army. So that was like 2015. I think I said my age earlier, so everybody can kind of guess how old I was then. So I think then it was hard because I was supposed to be sent for an overseas, not say mission, more like hosting. So yeah, it was supposed to be 1 year, and I really wanted to go because it was sounds a bit materialistic, but the pay was good compared to what a normal NS guy gets, and also because I'm not a test fit soldier, so like I'm not combat trained. I was just going there to do clerical stuff. I was a clerk, so naturally like life would still be quite chill. I mean, of course, leaving family and all that is tricky, but I thought like, I was still young back then.
1 year.
Why not? Yeah. So, but as part of that requirement to go, I had to go for like a medical checkup. Yeah, so the medical checkup to make sure that I'm okay and all that, like check everything lah. Because in Thailand, the facilities for medical treatment is definitely not as good as Singapore. Or rather, by the SAF standard, they have a lot of rules. Those of us who serve NS will know, like a lot of rules and a lot of regulations.
I agree.
Yeah. So one of the checks that I had to do was for this particular disease lah. Yeah, so it was a very routine check. I didn't think much of it. Just go and do it was just a blood test lah. Yeah, so the blood test was actually for TB or tuberculosis, which is quite a, I would say it's not a very big thing now, but in the past, like because I study history, right, so I also know that like maybe 40 years ago, in the 1960s, 1970s, like when your parents were young or when they just born, that was quite a big killer lah. But of course, there's very good treatment for it now. Yeah, but nonetheless, I went for the blood test and it came back positive for tuberculosis. And apparently there are two kinds of TB. There's the latent one and the active one.
Right.
So the one so they also went for a further check to check whether mine is the latent one or the active one. Latent one, they were saying that it will go off faster or something like. It's been many years, so I can't remember what they told me. But definitely less serious than like active.
Right.
Yeah, where you can actually like potentially like die from it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, they did the test. Turns out it was active. And I was like, what's the chance of the test being wrong, right? Because I didn't actually feel like sick or whatever. And they were like, no lah, 99% accuracy. Yeah, so yeah, that was kind of sucky. Because naturally, because of that, not just could I not go overseas, I had to go for the treatment. Okay, but the treatment was quite interesting. So it's just medication, but you had to go to a polyclinic to take the medication under supervision.
Right.
Yeah, which I found very strange because why can't you just give me the medicine? But apparently that's the protocol. I think because also this disease is more common among elderly, older people. So naturally, and with the whole stigma over like this is a number one killer in the past, I think that's why they want to do this like, observation thing.
Right.
Yeah, so it was quite sucky because I mean it wasn't so much like physical strain or whatever, but more like mentally like being very excited to go, and then in the end I ended up with this.
Right.
Yeah, so it was quite a testing period.
Right.
But I guess through that period, much as it's been many years, I learned that and the recovery was fast. So just take the medicine, follow their regime. They slowly, so it started with a lot of medicine. Like I think it was every day to the polyclinic, if I'm not wrong. Except Sunday because it's not open. Yeah, so every day you have to go to the polyclinic just to take the medicine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really like not fun. Yeah. But of course you didn't have to be hospitalized and all that lah. And technically I didn't really need to share with too many people. But of course if people ask me what am I doing in the day, then it will come up lah. Sometimes, right? And of course like mentally knowing that you have something like that, it's not a very nice feeling. Yeah. But I mean it eventually toned down like towards like the end of the 6 months. Yeah. And then finally I received by the end of that year, I think December lah, Christmas period, like Christmas gift to me that year was to have the letter saying that I no longer have this disease.
Oh wow, that's the best.
So like really,
not best.
I'm going to do an X-ray and all that to check out also, which I did not mention earlier. Yeah, they had to make sure that the whatever is inside the lungs is gone.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean praise God for that. But I guess back to sovereignty, I learned that actually, in this case, I question God a lot. Like, why put me through the trouble of giving me this chance to go? overseas, and then only to discover that I had something like that. And then I realized that it really was all part of his plan, because if I had not agreed to go for the posting, I might not, there was no need to take any test. Then who knows what could have happened if I did not know that I had this.
Yeah.
And apparently the signs of getting it, it's not very obvious.
Right.
Yeah, so it could have been very, very serious if it wasn't discovered earlier. So I mean, perhaps that was all part of the plan lah, like God's will for me to want to go for it, to find out I had, and then to make sure that I'm healthy and able to live out my life. Yeah, because who knows what could have happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that was one big incident that happened that showed me that God clearly has a plan beyond my comprehension, and that His will is far greater than mine. Yeah. His ways are also higher. Yeah, sovereign.
Understand. I think what I noticed from your story was that the challenge of trusting in God's sovereignty is when what you planned as ideal was disrupted, and not only disrupted, God gave you not very ideal kind of situation, right? So because at first you wanted to really go for this posting, but instead God gave you something that I have this disease, right? But of course, eventually what you learn is that have you not detect this earlier? I mean, have you not think about wanting to go for the posting? You will not have get this check, and if you have not get this check, you will not have early intervention for this disease. Yeah. So on this note, I think usually when people go through like similar situation, may not be as drama, or sometimes it's just maybe just simple things like, okay, God, I mean, recently I got to know of these poly students who says, God, I really, really want to go for this iron trip to see Northern Light and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, but then something disrupted. Then she just pray that God will let her go lah. But the something disrupted was just very simple thing, like the mom don't really allow her to go and so on.
Okay.
Yeah. So usually on this also, or usually people will say, especially when the most ideal thing, the not so ideal thing happens, then people usually reply, hey, you must trust God sovereign. You must trust God's sovereignty. Yeah. So for people who are struggling to trust the Lord's sovereignty, right? What would you say to them, or what would you encourage them?
I think it's not a. I would also say that it's really challenging to trust God all the time. And I think just thinking, okay, often we use like trust God, just trust God. You have to plan as a very, which is kind of what I said earlier, but it can come across as very cliched. And I think very sweeping, and also like I think it's not the most helpful when somebody is trying to share with you.
Yes.
Yeah, just to say that just trust God lah, it'll be fine. Whatever. And then quote them a Bible verse or two. Yeah, so I think if today you're watching this and you are struggling to trust God, or to see that He's sovereign, I think that or maybe you have a friend who is feeling that way, in whatever the situation is, maybe it can be like the one that you shared. It's important to hear the person out completely, without trying to avoid. I mean, we all want to. I think we all generally want to. I'm assuming everybody wants to encourage their friend. You don't want to pour cold water on their wound, make it worse, right? You want to make things better, but sometimes we're very quick to offer a solution or offer a way out, cop out through like a verse, instead of actually understanding where they are coming from. Yeah, so I think for people who, if you have a friend who is struggling, then it might be helpful to actually, just be there for them. I ask questions, but don't ask. Of course, don't make it worse. But at the same time, like try to acknowledge the feelings. Like, hey, I hear that it is not easy for you, and I think it's really not easy. But thank you for sharing with me. Perhaps, and then just go on and then try to ask a little bit more if the person is really sure, just to be there for them. I think that is helpful. Beyond just saying a model answer, because I think sometimes when we are struggling, we are not looking for a model answer, we're just looking to be heard and I guess have my challenge validated. In a sense. And I guess if you are struggling, I really empathize. It's not an easy thing, for sure. I don't know whether the situation will get better, but know that you can share with people, and that your friends, look for people that you can trust, share these things with, or maybe even a trusted adult who has more experience than you. Might be your parents, might be your, I don't know, 小姑 it can be different ones lah. Aunties, anyone that you trust, and share with them, and hopefully you can work it through lah. Yeah. I mean, of course, also cling on to what we know from God's word. That's very helpful, but I guess not just having that, but also having people alongside you is important. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like when you go through, in your own instances, it may be the army or maybe something else. As you go through a situation where you find it very difficult to trust in God's sovereignty, right? What were some of the things that you pray? What are some of the things that, I don't know, like how's your prayer life then?
I think initially when, to go back to the incident in Thailand, the Thailand incident I shared, the army one, I think that initially I was just in this very bad state of like, oh, I'm sick, like why did you do this to me? A lot of blaming, a lot of anger, a bit of bitterness, I guess, towards God lah. Yeah, but I think that after, I think it was with some wise counsel from previous ones. So I think my dad was somebody who really supported me well through that period. Yes, he did share certain verses of encouragement, but I think because I trust him as my dad, who brought me up from young, right, and as a father to me, what really helped was his just journeying. And I guess that also inspired me to pray myself. Yeah, so I think like instead of like praying that, oh God, may you take away the sadness or whatever, bitterness, which is good, but I also prayed for like, God, may you through this like difficult situation reveal to me what you have in mind, what is it that you want me to hear from you, what is it that what is the purpose of all of this. So instead of like being more, I guess, like directly like, oh God, may you grant me this, grant me. I think sometimes when we pray to God, we make it very like a vending machine. I press or I pray this and this will come true. We are very direct, but actually God already knows what we want before we even ask. So I think if we know that, then actually He doesn't need to be actually reminded of what you want. If God already knows our hearts that well,
right?
And He's God, right? So I decided to pray this way in a more, not so, I won't say it's not direct, but in a way that shows that I really trust God. And that this time round I'm asking for God to reveal to me what He wants to reveal in His own time. So rather than that, oh God, heal me by this date, but God take away the pain by tonight or something. Don't ever have a timeline lah. Don't ever have like, I must do by this date. But rather like, may you in your time, in your perfect time, may you show me what you want me to know. Perhaps that will give you more. For me, it gave me more peace because I just felt that things started to fall more into place. I didn't worry as much anymore. It wasn't as bitter. Of course, not immediate but I think it was effective for me. So maybe that's something we can pray instead of praying very directly at the concern that you have. It can be really anything, right? You pray for God to reveal His will, for God to show you what He wants, versus what you want. I
agree. I think what I learned from this sharing was that I think when we go through like difficult times, especially when we look at our life now in maybe 2022 or our life now, there's something that we cannot thank God for. I think there are 3 points that I got from you. One is I really sense that you were willing to be honest with yourself, right? When you shared that at that period of time when God didn't allow you to go for the trip, you were like just be honest with how you're feeling, upset with God. You question like, why did God like that? And second thing is you actually ask for like support. Not maybe ask or maybe welcome support people to come in to walk along with you rather than just encourage you, but just walk along with you, pray with you, even though at that time there's no answer to it. And of course, the third thing I've got from your sharing is learning to have that humility to ask God to redefine what goodness means. Because I think for you, in your ways, you ask God to show you His will, right? I feel that from your story, from the NS story just now, I think one of the things I really got back is redefine of to you the ideal is to go overseas, but to God the ideal is your health. And so I think there's a need to reframe our what is to us, what is good to us. Okay. So maybe we move on to the last question. So with that, right? I think with all that you learned about God's sovereignty, one of the things I always tell myself at the end of the year that next year, there's going to be just expect one or two major bad things happen. Not being trying to be like negative, but just trying to get myself ready that because every time I look back at the year, there's always one or two major bad things that happen, right? So as you enter into 2023, with these things that you've learned, how do you plan to enter into new year?
So you mean like enter the new year in terms of relating to
God as a sovereignty? Yeah.
God as a sovereign.
Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Okay. I think that I agree lah. Like every year, when we enter a new year, we enter with a sense of expectation, but we also know that life happens. So life happens, there will be some difficulties lah. But I think that perhaps what I will say is, for me, as I enter the new year, I want to enter the year knowing that this God that I've chosen to follow will continue to provide for me. I think that is something that is important to remember. So I think like going back to the basics, that God, all the various attributes of God, beyond just sovereignty, like He's also a provider. He loves us greatly. He will allow trials and challenges to happen, but that doesn't mean He doesn't love us. In fact, it's because He loves us that He wants us to learn something, right, from these challenges that He gives us.
Yes.
So I think like we want to go into the new year with such a perspective, which is that regardless of what challenges are thrown at me, and maybe hopefully not, but maybe some of them might be harder to handle than others, that I will continue to know that God is with me through the storms, through the different trials of life, and know that He's all my dreams, my hopes, my plans, He knows them better than I will know them, and that He will definitely know the struggles that I go through, and that I know that He will make a way. He will obviously allow me to struggle. He will allow us to struggle. He will allow us to go through the certain pain, certain difficult situations. But then ultimately that He's still in control. So I think remembering these things, that's how I want to enter into the year. Well, of course, expecting a fair share of good things and bad things. But I don't know. Maybe for me, I also felt that. Something that I do struggle with sometimes is being positive, having optimism, especially like in my case, next year when I am starting my full-time job, there's definitely that pressure, and there's also that stress, because I also heard from various seniors that it is challenging, it's gonna be quite crazy, not very nice things are said about it. But I think recently I've been realizing that if I were to base it on those expectations and also say the same thing, then that's not helping myself. And that's not trusting God,
right.
Not knowing that He's forgetting that He's gonna provide for me, that He's sovereign over the situation. So I think that's the hope and the mindset that I want to bring into the
beautiful. I think you ended off very, very well for this podcast. There's this idea that yes, we're going to expect the tough times and the good times, but I think one thing remain constant, which is hope. So I just want to end off with this quote that I heard recently. To be hopeful is also to be aware that there is sin, evil forces, and human foolishness can all work against God's will, but they will not prevail. Means there's an expiry date for it. But despite of this setback, we continue to live in hope. Hope not in ourselves, but in the goodness and the grace of God. Yeah, so I thought this sums up our conversation today about the sovereignty of God. And I hope that for those who are listening to this podcast, maybe this year, maybe next year, I hope that you look back at your life and being able to find something to be thankful to God about. Okay? Ken, okay, so thank you, Isaac, for being on the show. Thank you for making time to come all the way to this place to have this conversation and your sharing.
It was a pleasure too. Yes.
Yeah, and as a host, I also thank you for giving me the trust to have this conversation. Yeah, so for those who are listening, if you have questions about your Christian faith, please don't be afraid to DM us. We do hope to have this conversation with you. We will not throw you, just textbook answers, but like what Isaac just now shared, we just want to listen and understand so that we could actually walk alongside with you. Okay, so if you find this episode helpful also, do subscribe, to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify. My producer listening to this, looking at me. Okay, so and to follow us on Spotify and Instagram at the Safe Space. Lastly, Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too, and to everybody. Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to everyone, and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We'll see you next year, 2023. Bye.